Hello there. I trust you're sitting comfortably. So, let us begin. In today's video, I want to discuss Lord Voldemort as a character. Specifically, I want to look at exactly how powerful Lord Voldemort is as a character. I'm going to do this by looking at what has become at least a common trope within the commentary sphere of Harry Potter. It is often pointed out, wrongly in my opinion, that all you need to defeat Lord Voldemort is a good guy with a gun. So, what we're going to do is we're going to watch clips of a video laying out exactly how easy it would be, in theory, to kill Lord Voldemort. And I'm going to poke that video full of holes, because, like I say, Voldemort is actually an incredibly powerful villain. In all honesty, he's probably too powerful. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. So, let's begin.
All it would take to kill Voldemort is a good guy with a gun. Harry Potter makes zero sense when you think about it. The entire Wizarding world lives in fear of Voldemort and his minions. Voldemort is effectively at war with the Wizarding world, and by extension all the Muggles, neither of which seem to want to stop him all that bad. So that's what I intend to do. I will cover all the myriad of ways you can kill Voldemort relatively easily, instead of relying on a convoluted plan that involves having a kid become the chosen one, then killing him, then bringing him back to life, then having him fight Voldemort again, but this time Voldemort's spell rebels back at himself because the kid is actually the true owner of Voldemort's will.
Worth noting very quickly, the plan did work.
So, let's start with the first way to kill this no-nose loser. Use a gun. Despite how Voldemort looks, he's still fundamentally just a human. In fact, in the book, when he dies, he just slumps over, because he's just a guy, and he dies like a person who's just a guy. He does not have superpowers, he has no super perception, he has a normal amount of durability, he couldn't even speed blitz a 115-year-old man. My point is, Voldemort is human through and through, and can be taken out by normal human means. All it would take to stop Voldemort is a gun. You shoot him, that's it. For real, think about it. What's he gonna do? Cast the anti-bullet spell? Even if such a spell did exist, no person can react to a bullet like that. Even a Snake Man is not immune to the classic brap brap to in the head. And there are so many ways to deliver a bullet to its intended recipient. You could of course just shoot him up close, or maybe get a sniper that gives him even less opportunity to react. Or perhaps a mafia hit. Roll up in a car, roll down the window, and let him have it. Speaking of guns...
So, the problem with guns is pretty simple. Yeah, you might kill him. You might actually be able to kill Voldemort with a gun. 1, if you can get close enough. 2, if you can line up a clean shot. The bigger problem, though, is that Voldemort is effectively immortal until you destroy the Horcruxes, and it is shown that regular Muggle means are not going to be able to do any damage to those Horcruxes whatsoever. So yes, you might be able to destroy his body, which has already been done at the start of the story, in effect, because he's already been disembodied and is living as part of what is effectively a half-life eating unicorn blood on the back of Professor Krill's head. So, yeah, you could shoot him. He might die, but he is 100% going to come back, and he's going to kill you now, because he knows your face, and you shot him. So, unless you have... literally, unless you're a person that doesn't sleep, and is always armed and always ready, 100% of the time, eventually he's going to kill you. Because he doesn't... he is effectively immortal. And you have just shot and annoyed a very, very angry, immortal being that has a genocidal hatred for you and your people. It's not going to end well for you.
Where's the UK government? Where's NATO? The actual government of the UK knows about wizards. It's a whole plot point that the Minister of Magic and the Prime Minister meet up on occasion to discuss what's happening in their worlds. So if the Prime Minister of the UK knows about Voldemort, and knows that he's a clear and present danger to the non-magical people of the UK, why didn't they do anything?
This is a mistake in understanding exactly where the power lies within the Harry Potter universe. The reason the Muggle government didn't do anything when Voldemort appeared as a threat is because at first the magical government is trying to hide the re-emergence of Voldemort. They are doing everything they can to hide it, even from the magical folk. the Mughal government would have absolutely no idea that any of this was happening because the Mughal government is substantially less powerful than the magical government when it comes to dealing with Voldemort. And it's just substantially less powerful all around because of how the magical world operates. The magical world has access to not technology, but literal magic that is scale factors more potent than anything that a Muggle government could bring to bear. Think about MK Ultra. They tried mind control in real life and realized it doesn't work. The magical government actually has that. They have mind control. They could just turn up and say, right, the Prime Minister is now a puppet. And that's the difference in power dynamics between the two governments. Yeah, the Mughal government has an army, but an army doesn't matter when you can just mind control the person leading that army. Because then it's fighting for you. And at that point, that's the end of the conflict.
Voldemort is already committing acts of terror and killing lots of people. He blew up a bridge. Once he takes over the Ministry of Magic, they just start killing people in the streets. They don't care.
Once he takes over the Ministry of Magic, that's it. It's over. You have absolutely no hope at all of defeating this man as a Muggle government. The wizards in place to protect the Prime Minister were sent by the Ministry of Magic. They're now under the control of Voldemort. They can do whatever they want to the Prime Minister, and they don't even necessarily have to kill him. They could mind control him and then just have him start launching nukes. And say, all right, we're just going to start World War III, and that's it. Game over. He's achieved his plans of world domination and the complete destruction of the Muggles.
At what point does the UK military get involved? Or even better, at what point do they call NATO? It's almost certain that most nations know about magic. While not the general population, most world leaders probably interact with their magical counterpart. I imagine some governments on Earth are more of a melding of the magical and the non-magical government. Because having two parallel governments exist within the same borders and both claiming authority seems like a recipe for disaster.
Correct, which is why the magical government would actually have a hierarchical power over any Muggle government operating within their controlled region.
But Harry Potter's awful world building is a topic for another day.
I do agree that there is parts of the Harry Potter world building that are broken and awful. And part of it is how strong Lord Voldemort actually is a character. Because you have a villain here that is hell-bent on the destruction of Muggles as an entire species, effectively. Destruction and subjugation. And you gave him teleport anywhere at will powers and mind control. Like I say, all he does is just teleports into Washington, D.C., goes into the White House, and just mind controls the president and starts launching nukes. And if it's not the president that actually has his finger on the button, he finds the person that does and mind controls them because he has the ability to not only mind control, he can read people's thoughts as well. So he can read your thoughts, he can mind control you, you have no defense against this, you have no way of even knowing that it's happened if you're a Muggle. So yeah, like I say, he is monstrously overpowered as a villain. Like, realistically, if he were thinking through a proper plan for how to defeat Harry Potter, he doesn't need to face him one-on-one. He doesn't even need to face Dumbledore or the Ministry one-on-one. All he needs to do to win and achieve his goals is just teleport into the leaders of the world. Literally just teleport into every single government building around the world in an afternoon, mind control all of the important people, and hey presto, he's won. Because at that point, he has complete control over every government on Earth, and he can do whatever he wants with them.
Anyway, if the non-magical government does not feel the need to interfere initially, they definitely will when the actual magical government falls. I could see the UK staying their hand. Maybe the Ministry of Magic assured them that they had Voldemort under control, or maybe the UK government just didn't want to get involved with wizards because that's not their area of expertise.
Again, this is a misunderstanding of the power dynamics between the Muggle and magical government. The Muggle government isn't getting involved because it doesn't have the power to get involved. This isn't just outside of their area of expertise, it is outside of their capacity to exercise force over these people. They are worlds apart in terms of force. The magical world, effectively, could easily dominate the Muggle world if it felt like it.
Whatever the reason, they're going to be forced to get involved when the Ministry of Magic falls under the control of the magical Taliban. Now you have a rogue terrorist state within your borders that is planning to kill all of you, and they have magic. Of course you're going to get involved.
And you're going to lose immediately because they are, like I say, scale factor of power ahead of you.
Voldemort wants to kill all the Muggles. Eventually he will get to a point where he does something so damaging and so destructive that people have to get involved whether they want to or not. And because of that, the second he starts doing acts of terror, the UK government should just trigger Article 5. They should immediately start treating Voldemort as if he's an imminent threat and begin attacking on a war footing. Trigger Article 5, get other nations involved. If you're lucky, there's also a magical NATO, and Voldemort can feel the full force of the magic American military-industrial complex.
Which, as has been pointed out already, he has toppled everything. He is that powerful. He is basically the second most powerful man in the magical universe. The only person more powerful than him is Dumbledore, who does actually manage to fight him to a standstill and beat him. But your Muggle governments and your Muggle militaries, and even the military, if there is such, obviously there doesn't actually exist such a magical military, but the point being is that Voldemort could quite easily, and obviously does easily, topple magical institutions, let alone the Muggle ones. There isn't really any defense that can be put up against Voldemort. The reason why he attacks the castle is because it's Dumbledore's stronghold. And Dumbledore is actually basically the king of the magical universe, as I have put forward in my previous video.
Sure, a wizard might have the advantage in a one-on-one fight, but what are they going to do about air superiority? What's a broom going to do against a squadron of Harriers?
Nothing. A broom isn't going to be fighting the squadron of Harriers. What's going to happen is Voldemort's going to teleport into whoever it is directing those Harriers and mind control them and send them elsewhere. Probably to bomb more Muggles. Which, yeah, you've lost.
They're just going to follow the NATO playbook, quickly establish air superiority, and then start bombing known Death Eater positions.
You can't establish superiority over someone that can control your mind. It's literally impossible. It's an unwinnable fight because they own you.
Sure, some Death Eaters can teleport out, but the regular cannon fodder can't. With air superiority, you can also just start sending in ground troops. Wizards are shown to just be people. They have no supernatural stuff besides magic, so they're just as vulnerable to conventional weapons as anyone else.
They are just as vulnerable to conventional weapons as everyone else, as he says, but as I keep pointing out, conventional weapons don't matter when the opponent you're trying to fight has control of your mind. If they have control of your mind, they're controlling your actions, and those weapons are going to be very quickly turned on yourself.
But that's just taking the loud route. Remember the whole good guys with a gun could solve the Harry Potter thing I mentioned at the start? Well, as it turns out, 1990s Britain has some of the best trained good guys with guns in the business. Who here has heard of Operation Nimrod? If you haven't, I recommend you go on Wikipedia or watch one of the dozens of well-produced documentaries on YouTube about it. Anyways, the basic info is this. In 1980, the Iranian embassy in London was taken over by some armed dudes. There were hostages, negotiations were failing, and after a few days, they started killing hostages. So, they sent in the SAS, and those bad boys cleaned house in 17 minutes, with only one additional hostage casualty. Everyone else made it out alive.
And it was overwhelming force. Most people don't actually realize exactly how many SAS members went into the Iranian embassy siege. It was around about 80 men that stormed that building, going up against a grand total of only 6 terrorists. They went in there, massively outgunning them, massively outmanning them, and they crushed them because of it. Within this magical scenario, they might be able to outman them, but it doesn't matter if you can outman an opponent that can control your mind. Because all you're then doing is just feeding him more shooters, effectively. You are feeding him cannon fodder that isn't just regular cannon fodder that, gets fed into the millstone and grind into paste. You're feeding him cannon fodder that he can turn back on you. At which point, like I keep saying, it's a losing battle. You can't keep feeding the magical man that can control your mind more minds to turn against you.
It's what Ubisoft wishes Rainbow Six Siege was like. So just imagine, Voldemort and all his cronies are chilling in their weird hideout place. Suddenly, without warning, a flashbang comes through the window and goes off. Before anyone has time to react, bullets are flying and most of the Death Eaters are dead or incapacitated. Voldemort is either killed or captured and tried for crimes against humanity.
This assumes also that they can find him. It's very quickly proven that magical folk have extensive means of ensuring that they aren't found by other magical folk, let alone muggles. If the magical folk don't want to be found by the muggles, they'll be invisible to the point where they have entire sections of London that are totally invisible and inaccessible to non-magical people without being directly guided by a wizard. Voldemort is a step above that. He is hiding from the magical government for a while, and there is nothing the magical government can do to find him. So the chances of a Muggle government managing to find him and pin down his location to carry out any form of attack is basically zero. It's not going to happen.
The British government absorbs the now defunct Ministry of Magic, and the magical trained SAS is the most powerful fighting force in the world. Rule Britannia, the sun shall never set on the British Empire, yada yada yada. Either that, or the Americans can send an AC-130. Seriously, what can Voldemort do against an AC-130? But what if for some reason you don't want to use a gun, and you don't want to get muggles involved? Well, there are still plenty of ways to get Voldemort. The biggest reason he's allowed to roam free is because wizards for some reason refuse to use real weapons against him. The Ministry of Magic is at war against what is essentially a terrorist organization, yet they refuse to use lethal magic. A Death Eater will show up to a fight ready to use the unblockable killing curse, while a Ministry Aura will just show up with Expelliarmus or some similar non-lethal spell. Your enemies brought Titanfall smart pistols, and you brought a taser. You're in a war. Military should be allowed to use lethal force. Obviously the killing curse should be outlawed for civilian use, but the military should be able to use it in combat. That's War 101. Quick sidebar, but do you think wizards in America have like a Second Amendment purists about the killing curse? Like, I will defend my house with the killing curse like the founding fathers intended. You're at war, so use the things that kill people. That highlights a broader issue I have with the Ministry of Magic. They treat Voldemort and his insurgency as a law enforcement issue and not a military one.
This is a more interesting line of question because, yeah, your opponents are trying to kill you, and on top of that, they're using power beyond what you're willing to use for whatever reason. And it eventually leads to the downfall of the magical government, whereby Voldemort does actually subvert it and captures the magical government, because the magical government wasn't willing to take that step necessary to combat Voldemort. But to be fair, as I've already pointed out, he's extraordinarily powerful as a wizard. It's entirely possible, even if they were to so to say, stoop to the same level as Voldemort, that they would have still lost. But part of the reason why they don't stoop to that level is because J.K. Rowling is a nice fluffy liberal, and she wrote this story intending it to be a more pro-liberal story, so to speak, even though it is deeply rooted in so much tradition that a lot of that liberalism can just be sort of brushed aside. And when you brush it aside, you can look underneath and see the mechanics of the story and how it all fits together and how it works. At which point you realise, right, yeah, no, a lot of this actually isn't liberal. It's just a liberal pipe dream stuck on at the end of it, whereby Harry becomes the king and then basically does away with the throne, but not really.
The Death Eaters are clearly a terrorist organization who are also actively recruiting more members. They were actively killing people and attacking all over, and the best the Ministry could do was send out Auras to deal with stuff. The main force countering the Death Eaters is the Order of the Phoenix, which is an even smaller rebellion fighting a rebellion.
This isn't a rebellion fighting a rebellion. It's gangs and counter gangs, but it's even more complicated because realistically, when you understand that the magical government isn't sovereign, it becomes clear that it's not strictly a insurgency fighting against a government. It becomes more clear that it is a revolution rather than a simple rebellion.
It's like the Star Wars sequel trilogy. The First Order is a rebellion against the New Republic, and then the Resistance is a rebellion rebelling against a rebellion. So it just feels like two gangs fighting. Why does the Ministry not have some form of standing army? Does the Wizarding World never go to war?
I believe that was touched upon in the events prior to Harry Potter, which haven't really been fully fleshed out, I don't think. They've been fleshed out a little bit, but not enough to justify a full explanation as to why there isn't a magical military.
Are you telling me Wizard France and Wizard Britain never duked it out?
They did, and then that's theoretically why they got rid of the wizard militaries, I believe.
The Ministry has no real army, while Voldemort is building a standing military. The Order of the Phoenix accomplishes much more than the Aurors, and there's only like 20 of them.
Elite minority. Doing elite minority things.
Aurors don't even seem to be that competent of a fighting force, given that they often act alone. For some reason, the entire Wizarding World seems to be bound to dueling. Everyone, from random students to Mr. Evil Voldemort himself, seem to only fight in one-on-one duels.
This is an excellent point as well, which this is kind of how it has to go in order for the story to work. Because if Voldemort starts thinking tactically, he just conquers the world in an afternoon. And there's no two ways around it because of how powerful he has been made as a character, which is a bit of a flaw in the story. That you basically have to have your main villain act like a moron so that he doesn't just steamroller the game and win everything.
Duels are all well and good if you are the strongest guy, but when you're fighting the strongest dark wizard in history, you can't just duel him one-on-one. He will win.
He's not the strongest wizard in magical history either. As is pointed out, Dumbledore quite easily fights him to a standstill and is strong enough to defeat him. And in the end of the story, Harry beats him in a one-on-one duel.
Take a note from Jujutsu Kaisen. Jump him, get all the powerful people you have, and hit him with everyone at once. It does not have to be a fair fight in the slightest. He can only kill one person at a time with the killing curse. Have one person put up an anti-apparition field, and then everyone else just goes ham on him. Also, why did no one set up a trap for him? Voldemort wouldn't fight many people, but if someone was powerful and also big enough of a nuisance, he would go out of his way to go kill them. So get a guy who's powerful and a nuisance. Wait till Voldemort personally shows up, and then have 20 people all apparate in at once and cast whatever spells. 20 Expelliarmuses. 20 stupefies. Just reduce his brain to a goo. Who knows, maybe the brain damage will be permanent, so even when he revives from a Horcrux, he still can't do anything. Draw him into a fight and then blow up a giant bomb under their feet. Like, there are so many ways to get rid of him. Besides killing him directly, you can also get rid of him by weakening his ability to fight in a war. He has this massive army. Besides just fighting them, also remove his ability to recruit people. One of the biggest mistakes the Ministry of Magic made was not recognizing the plight of magical creatures. Voldemort was able to easily recruit werewolves and giants because they're mistreated by the wizarding community and don't have rights.
This again is some of the shallowish world building and liberal world building specifically by J.K. Rowling. She wanted there to be grievances within the world that could be righted come the end of the story when the old regime is basically shuffled out and cycled out, and the new regime under Harry and his friends comes in to right those wrongs. Obviously, after the story, it goes on to say that Hermione becomes what is effectively a wizard human rights lawyer and fights for the plight of all of those poor, unfortunate magical creatures.
Why would you be surprised when they join him? Their options are have no rights, or join the evil guy who kinda likes you. They could have avoided so many problems.
Elite minorities offering incentives against the current ruling order, who they have grievances with. Yeah, it's a pretty interesting thing to actually draw out from that.
If after the First Wizarding War, they just started treating magical creatures well, the Giants won't need to join Dr. Evil if you just give them human rights. Realistically though, this probably would never happen because the Ministry of Magic seems to be completely incompetent and unwilling to do anything. I mean, they elevated Cornelius Fudge for Pete's sake, and even the guy that came after him that was like an Auror was supposed to be hard on Voldemort, he didn't really do anything besides try to get Harry Potter to like the Ministry of Magic, which is really weird that you're at a war and your main concern is, what if Harry Potter doesn't like us? They are more concerned with getting a child to like them than fighting an active war.
There are some ways in which this makes sense. If you understand Dumbledore's plan, and if you understand that Harry Potter is going to be the next most powerful wizard in the magical world, it makes sense for the magical government to try to cozy up to him. However, from a storytelling point of view, it is a bit weird.
With all that in mind, how do I think Harry Potter would realistically play out? It's quite simple. Basically the exact same until Voldemort is back. Once he's back and blowing up bridges, the real British government gets involved. There's no world where they don't get involved, especially once bridges start collapsing and mass casualty events happen. But you're not going to stop Voldemort because the wizards asked to keep their secrecy?
You're not going to stop Voldemort as a Muggle government because, as I said before, you're not powerful enough. You don't have any leverage to bring to bear over Voldemort as a Muggle government. He can just completely and utterly dominate you, and there's nothing you can do about that.
They should have thought of that when they decided unilaterally that Muggles aren't worthy of getting magical healthcare. They live in a post-disease, almost post-scarcity world, and they are so dead set on remaining secret from the rest of the world that they won't help anyone. Imagine if wizards used their magic to stop a pandemic. What if they showed up during COVID or the Spanish flu and helped people? Instead, they were trying to be all secretive, and then when their wizard problems start harming Muggles, they're like, no, don't get involved, this isn't for you.
Which is quite funny, because it draws the really, really, really clear comparison and understanding that the magical world, the wizards, are effectively a elite ruling minority that sit above the jurisdiction of the British government. The magical world is above the Muggle world in terms of power. And in the power dynamics, they dictate to the British government what's going to happen. Because, as I say, there is nothing that the Muggle government could ever bring to bear to bring the magical government to heel. It is simply more powerful than any Muggle government.
If the Ministry of Magic refuses to help, I think the British government is just going to go rogue and start bombing Death Eater positions. Special forces should be able to easily dispatch them, and honestly, any amount of military might should be able to deal with Death Eaters because they're just a bunch of guys. The hardest part will be the fact that they're in hiding and are more of an insurgency, so there won't be many big one-on-one battles. But that's still something you can probably deal with. I'm also confused on why foreign Aurors never got involved. If Voldemort was such a big threat, why weren't American Aurors involved, or European Aurors, or anyone else? Is there no magical NATO?
Again, this is an interesting question, and it's basically down to shallow world building by JK. She didn't really flesh out anything beyond the British world at this point. Like, the magical world is effectively just Britain within the Harry Potter universe in the first 7 books. It's only once you start getting into the ancillary material that you get magical governments and magical world building expanding beyond the shores of the British Isles. Other than, obviously, you have the one mention within the Goblet of Fire when it's like, oh yeah, there's kind of European magical schools, but we're not really going to get into that too far.
Are there no magical countries that are like, oh, Britain has fallen, we should probably get involved? They should have fresh memories of what happened when Grindelwald was around. The fact of the matter is this: if Voldemort destroys the Ministry of Magic, he becomes an immediate threat to non-magical Britain.
And this is the thing, he doesn't just destroy the Ministry of Magic, he takes control of it. He is the government.
And any attack against non-magical Britain is an attack against every NATO member. Voldemort doesn't die in some big dramatic battle, he probably gets hit by an airstrike. Of course, he has Horcruxes, but honestly, I don't see how those change things. He gets hit by a drone strike and dies, but comes back thanks to a Horcrux. From the Muggle perspective, they would assume they just missed him the first time around and drone strike him again.
Except at which point he is just teleporting to your leadership and mind controlling them. And those bombers are now targeting your own civilian population, because that realistically would be his goal. And the problem, as I've pointed out multiple times now, is he is actually powerful enough to do that. He could just teleport into the homes of the leadership of the world, mind control them, and have them start fighting their own populations. Which is a massive, massive plot hole within the whole Harry Potter story. That basically the archvillain is more than strong enough to achieve his goals, but he just gets laser focused on defeating the boy who lived.
They don't need to know about the Horcruxes that beat him, they just need to keep killing him. And once they inevitably do learn about his ability to survive death, it doesn't really matter. The SAS and airstrikes are still gonna keep getting him. Unless he has an anti-bullet spell, he's just getting flashbanged then killed. His greatest strength is his ability to teleport at will, but that only works if he has warning. One sniper shot and he's out. Regardless of whether the Ministry of Magic falls to Voldemort or not, I imagine they're going to get taken over by the British government. After fighting a threat like Voldemort and with knowledge of previous ones like Grindelwald, there's no way they're going to allow a second parallel government to keep existing if that government keeps breeding super terrorists who are going to destroy the world.
Again, this assumes that the Muggle government has any power at all over the magical government. It doesn't. The magical government is just going to keep doing what it wants to do because the magical government is sovereign. The UK government is not sovereign. It does not get any say in anything the magical government does.
And there's that whole aspect that the magical world has all this cool stuff that they won't let muggles use. They can cure basically any mundane disease, but they only save it for witches and wizards. They have magical devices, but they only let squibs use them. They're going to get absorbed into the British government, wizards are going to become common knowledge, and there's going to be a lot of restructuring of society. Man, I can't believe J.K. Rowling didn't think about the geopolitical implications of Voldemort while writing her children's books.
Yes, as you can tell, she didn't think all of the way through, which is understandable because they were just children's books. But that doesn't mean that she needed to make Voldemort as powerful as she did. Because by making Voldemort as powerful as she did, he could have easily achieved his goals and conquered the world with very little effort. Which is why when you're picking your story elements and when you're trying to build a villain, you have to be really careful not to make them so powerful that they could quite simply steamroller the world. Or if you do make them that powerful, to make it very, very clear that there is someone infinitely more powerful than them that is actively stopping them from doing anything like that. Within Harry Potter, there is to some degree that character in the form of Dumbledore, whereby Voldemort is shown on multiple occasions not only to be weaker than Dumbledore, but to be afraid of him. And that's what you need to balance that kind of power. But like I say, personally, I don't think Dumbledore is enough to stop Voldemort from just steamrolling the world and defeating Harry Potter and defeating the magical resistance against his conquest using regular means. Because all that Voldemort would do, as I pointed out, is mind control Muggle governments, start World War III. At which point you destroy any morale that anyone resisting you had of the hope that you could save the current regime, the current system, and move on, because it's over. He's already won. So, I think that's a good place to end this video. If you enjoyed it, please do drop a like, leave a comment, share, and subscribe. Do all that stuff for whatever's left of the YouTube algorithm. Until next time, bye for now.